brief presentation.
Sorry,
That's
we're
okay. We're good. This is a fairly brief presentation, really just intended to provide an introduction of myself and the project to you all. There's an action item at the end, and really I'm here to answer questions or engage in the community dialogue with you. So that's really my intended focus. Let me get that PowerPoint going. Whoops, share screen. Share screen. Ta-da. Alrighty, let me move you over here and I will put this in presentation mode. Here we are. Could I just get a verbal shout out that you're able to see my PowerPoint presentation in presentation mode as opposed to the notes screen on my other monitor? Thank you, Tanya. I appreciate that. All right. Well, once again, I'm Katie Hunt. The city of Durham is engaging in the early phases of conceptualizing what we're calling a reuse hub project as a way to catalyze a local circular economy for our communities here in Durham. I am the project lead, and I'm delighted to be assessing the feasibility for this project. There we go. Just as a simple overview, as I mentioned at the start, I am a FUSE Executive Fellow. FUSE, F-U-S-E, is a national nonprofit that works with municipalities at the community level, county and city level, to scope out various equity-based projects. Not all of their projects are sustainability focused, but with obvious interest in climate and other related issues, that is becoming a focus of their program. FUSE has worked with the city of Durham on other projects in the recent past, and so I'm delighted to be another member of the FUSE core working with the city. My role with the city's Department of Solid Waste Management, as you can see on the screen here, is to help envision what we're calling a reuse hub could look like for the city under the primary goals of reducing waste that's currently going to the Sampson County landfill, but also in keeping those resources, that valuable material that often is getting mixed in our garbage, circulating in our local economy at its highest level of value so that we can create economic opportunities for Durham residents. I started this fellowship in May, and I have kind of a three-part objective for my leading of this project in this first year. Stakeholder engagement being the primary focus of my tasks, so connecting with community groups such as you all today, and then working with other interested partners in the local reuse sector, as well as workforce development organizations and other community organizations here in Durham. I am knee-deep in research and data analysis, looking at comparable models of these kinds of initiatives across the country, of which there are several fantastic models, one of which is here in North Carolina, others scattered across the country, as well as thinking through equitable asset-based approaches of what this could look like here in Durham, because this is not a one-size-fits-all model, and the project as I'm leading it here really is intended to be based on community input and stakeholder feedback. And then finally, before the initial phase of this project or the fellowship ends in the spring, I will be handing the city a comprehensive report with all of the findings and recommendations so that they can move it forward. Just to sort of walk you through what this means, we're using the phrase reuse hub, but that's really just meant as a sort of catch-all signifier to sort of help the ideation process as these conversations continue with community stakeholders. Essentially, what the city is interested in launching is a network of relationships, a hub of relationships that foster sharing, reusing of valuable commodity or materials that are currently going to the landfill, as well as community demonstrations, repair workshops, knowledge sharing, and the like. And so really sort of thinking through ways to cultivate a variety of partnerships that kind of span those three broad goals. Just as a very preliminary sort of high level kind of logic model of how this is beginning to take shape. Oh, I'm going the wrong way, pardon me. There we go. As you can see, the project is primarily motivated by a commitment to environmental justice and creating an inclusive circular economy, focusing on ways that we can use that network of relationships that I just described to cultivate economic opportunity for our marginalized and vulnerable community members here in Durham. Importantly, doing that to keep resources active in the local economy. That's what circular economy refers to. And then, as I mentioned, creating economic opportunities. And so that network of relationships, as I mentioned, is meant to span several sectors. The city is interested in supporting small businesses or startups or entrepreneurs that are active here in the area. Fostering reuse sector collaborations. Durham is very lucky to already have a vibrant reuse sector with organizations like Don't Waste Durham, the Scrap Exchange, the Bike Co-op. There's a wealth of organizations already engaged in reuse and repair activity here in Durham. And then, as I've mentioned already, creating workforce development, training, apprenticeship, internship opportunities for students as well as adults, those who were formerly incarcerated, other adult populations that are looking for perhaps job retraining or other economic opportunities. And then finally, using this project as an opportunity to host and sponsor community workshops, demonstrations, and other knowledge sharing opportunities, as I mentioned earlier. And I'll give a quick plug for one of those that we have upcoming next month before I end today. And so a couple of ways in the conversations that I've been having with various partners and community groups, a couple of ways that this is beginning to take shape, some of the potential activities within this reuse hub project would be, as you see at the bottom of the screen there, deconstruction, whether that's architectural salvage or other deconstruction of residential buildings and so forth, repurposing. So through perhaps some entrepreneurial ventures, if we could repurpose materials that are otherwise headed to the landfill. Mattress recycling is a big one. Textile recycling is another fantastic opportunity. Even the polystyrene foam that comes, say, in your Amazon packages, lots of ripe opportunities for repurposing those kinds of materials and leveraging partnerships with organizations to do that. And then other forms of material exchange. Partnering with vocational service organizations or other workforce development partners to create those reuse workforce development opportunities that I mentioned. And then one more time, because we're so excited to be thinking through ways that the Department of Solid Waste in the city can co-host reuse related community events. We had a fantastic clothing swap event just prior to the holidays in collaboration with Circular Triangle. And that was just a sort of trial run, but went off without a hitch. And we're very excited to be offering more of these kinds of activities in the near future. I tend to talk pretty quickly, so I can pause here if there are questions or even thoughts that are already on your mind about this potential project. Feel welcome to chime in. Well, that's okay too. You think through everything that I've just shared and what you're seeing here. And I would love to hear from you. One way that you can provide your feedback about this project is by sharing and completing our community survey. This community survey is available on our project's landing page. The QR code that you see on the screen here will take you directly to the survey, but the URL to the left of that QR code will take you to the landing page that I just mentioned. And my contact information is provided there, as well as some additional summary information about the project. And other project-related documentation will be shared for community transparency on that page in the near future. So use that page to gather more information about the project. As you can see, the survey is available in English and Spanish. And for those of you on the call who have your own community networks, I would be most appreciative if you would be willing to share this survey out through your networks, whether that's neighborhood groups, your constituent lists, or other networks that you can leverage. We have already received a robust response to the survey, but we are interested in targeting our outreach, of course, to our Black and Brown communities across the city and other communities that would stand to most benefit from this project. And so I would really appreciate your support if you're able to forward the survey. I can provide a PDF or an image file of the card that you see on the screen if that would be useful to you. Please do let me know. I'll pause just for a moment in case anyone still needs that QR code. As I mentioned, we are very proud. The Department of Solid Waste is organizing some reuse related events. We just had a very successful clothing swap event, again, in collaboration with one of our partners, Circular Triangle. We are working with Repair Cafe to be hosting a Repair Cafe event here in town in likely to be late February. We are in the process of securing a location for that event. We should have that nailed down by the end of this week. And we will be promoting and sharing out details about that event once we have that location secured. So do stay tuned. That URL for the landing page on the previous slide will have event-related information once that comes together. And the city will also be promoting that across their social media and other communications channels. So if you're interested in Repair Cafes, we hope to see you at that event in February. Finally, my contact information is here for you. It's also on that landing page, but you are most welcome, in fact, encouraged to get in touch with me if you have thoughts, ideas, feedback, if you want to partner, if you would otherwise like to think through collaborations on this project. I would love to hear from you. I go by Katie. Kathleen.Hunt is my email address, and it would be fantastic to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much, Katie. Really exciting project. And Katie, feel free to share your slides, your PowerPoint on our email list, as well as information about that event or any other events.
Wonderful, thank you. I will do that.
So questions, comments?
I have one. This is Tina. And I know that the Scrap Exchange used to have a monthly repair cafe, I believe pre-pandemic. Is that no longer going on?
I appreciate that question, Tina. I have met with Heather Woodhouse, and she is fully supportive of the project and has endorsed the project. She did not mention a Repair Cafe monthly event to me specifically, so I appreciate you flagging that, and I will circle back to her on that. Thank you.
Katie, are you thinking that, should we think of a hub as a information hub or a physical place that the county might or the city might envision? Where is that? Like, what are the models out there?
Excellent question, John. Yeah, well, so I'll take it in reverse order. The models that are out there it runs the gamut. Many of these initiatives are not always sort of coordinated through the municipal agency. And so it is most certainly a marker of distinction for the city of Durham that the city manager's office has engaged the Department of Solid Waste Management in coordinating this initiative. Because of course that's the agency with the infrastructure available for collecting and sorting waste and recyclables, right? In the conversations that I have had with community stakeholders and with commitment to centering equity through this project, it has surfaced the importance of some sort of physical space as a community asset has surfaced in the conversations that I've been having. So I have certainly shared that recommendation already with city leadership. And so as the project continues, the fellowship that I'm engaged in for the current year is really a fact-finding, sort of mission, if you will, gathering all the community feedback, brainstorming, ideating, and then sharing all of that back with the city. As the city thinks through ways to continue the project, and those conversations are ongoing at this time. Nailing down some of those logistical considerations will be part of the next phase of the project. And so identifying a site that is suitable for at the least a community space for these kinds of workshops, demonstrations, those kinds of community meetings, all the way up to and including space that can accommodate the collecting and sorting of the material that would be circulating through this hub. Those logistical considerations will be taken up in the second project phase.
Is there anything specific that organizations in Durham that are represented here could do to support the project?
Excellent question. Thank you. Yeah, at this time, what I would really appreciate the most is two things. First, as I mentioned in my quick spiel there, if you are able to share our community survey out to your networks, that will make an enormous difference. And let me take a pause here. I get it, friends. Surveys are not the most ideal way of gathering community feedback. I'm qualitatively trained in my own background anyway, so I much prefer having these kinds of conversations. But for the city to be able to receive robust data showing community interest, needs, comments, and support for this project, the broader swath of feedback that we can receive, so a survey, will best serve that purpose, particularly from our underserved communities here in Durham. And so if you have networks that are embedded with our Hispanic and Latinx communities, our Black and Brown communities, our low income, low wealth communities, I cannot stress enough the importance of sharing our survey with those areas of our city so that we can get that feedback, because these are intended to be the populations that will most benefit from the partnerships and programs and workforce development opportunities that can be connected in with this project. And so hearing from those voices from the start will help build this project in a way that can best serve those populations. So that's point number one. Point number two, we've got a big group on the meeting here today, and I think there's comments coming in on the chat that I'll review shortly. If you are working for or with or otherwise affiliated with an organization that does work that you even tangentially perceive as relevant to this project, I would most enjoy having a one-on-one conversation with you. We can brainstorm, we can sort of think through what a potential partnership or collaboration might look like. Those kinds of one-on-one conversations are really the best way to think that through. And so I would so appreciate hearing from you, and you can contact me by email, then we can set up another meeting. Those would be my two action items for the folks in the group.
I think you have a few people with hands up, Katie, if you want to call on them.
Yes, thank you. I wasn't sure who was moderating. Let's see. Maggie has a hand up.
Yep. Hi. So I'm with We Planet Forward, and one of the things I was thinking about is urban wood, and if that's been a consideration, and if you even know about the concept of urban wood.
I have to plead ignorance. I'm not familiar with that concept specifically. And so if you'd like to share now, you can, or we can certainly follow up after the meeting.
Yeah, no, sure. I could do it quickly, and then we could also follow up. But, urban wood is, when the city cuts down trees for various reasons, oftentimes it's safety because a tree is dying. That wood instead of going to a landfill, could go to a furniture maker, or there are different programs around collecting wood for firewood for low-income families that just use wood-burning stoves. So there's a couple of sort of uses of that kind of wood that could benefit the community.
Thank you, Maggie. I love that idea. Yes, see, this is why these conversations are so generative. Thank you for bringing that up. I would love to follow up with you and learn more. I saw briefly someone in the chat. Oh yes, I see the URL there for Baltimore. What a fantastic opportunity, of course. And so this is the kind of piece of a reuse hub type project that benefits having it embedded in the municipal agency, because of course the Department of Solid Waste already collects yard waste and those kinds of materials. The city also has urban forestry programs and other partners like Keep Durham Beautiful. And so this is the kind of infrastructural support that the city can provide in standing up a reuse hub program like this. So thank you, Maggie. I appreciate that. Urban Wood. Let's see, there are other hands raised. Oh,
I will just share that the City of Durham Urban Forestry does have this program. And I just put some links in there. I haven't heard about
excellent. Thank you.
yet recently, but I know that they've made some efforts to make that wood available.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tanya. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Perfect. Let's see, other hands are raised. I may not have the order right. Tina?
I'm just wondering about the relationship with Don't Waste Durham and this effort. I don't see anybody from Don't Waste Durham on the call, and was just wondering about that vision of reuse and circulation.
Yes, absolutely. Don't Waste Durham was one of the very first contacts that I made when I first landed here. Crystal, of course, is no longer with the organization. And so she was my primary contact and is transitioning me, so to speak, over to another member of the still existing team there. I know, you know, with her sort of shifting out of the organization, there's some transition going on there. But yes, they have endorsed the project and they're a key partner in this. Thank you. Matt, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. First of all, you probably know them, but I just want to make a plug for the Life Cycle Building Center of Greater Atlanta and their connection to the City of Atlanta. And it's a great kind of nonprofit public sector partnership that does a lot around recycling and reuse of building materials. That could be an interesting model to look at.
Perfect.
And then in terms of a question, this may have moved farther along than I'm aware of, but as of about 6 months ago, when I was serving on the Environmental Affairs Board, we had groups coming to us proposing an ordinance that would require the recycling of construction and demolition materials in Durham. WAFA may have a more up-to-date idea of where that's at, but just could be an interesting point of intersection where policy could help to like further generate the materials that then would be handled through a reuse hub for building materials.
Yes, thank you for that. I was not familiar with that previous effort for the ordinance, so I appreciate you surfacing that. I'll look into that for sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, the IAB did not approve it.
It was not approved. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that's I appreciate that. I would still yeah, I'll follow up on that. I'd love to see who was spearheading that effort. Thank you both. Is it Katie Henderson? I see your hand up.
Whoops. Yes. Hello. Yeah, along same lines, just questions of people that you or organizations you may have already been connecting with, but I was wondering about the Durham LGBTQ Center. They have a clothing closet that I know they get to capacity pretty often, but they do clothing distribution. And then also the group, I know there's a couple other groups around, but North Durham Mutual Aid does really free markets that they host that are like material and skill shares. Excellent. And could be a good group to connect with. And then also space-wise, I've seen similar kinds of events at the Solidarity Hub, the Durham Solidarity Hub. and they do, yeah, different kinds of space as well as programming on their own, and could be good to connect with if you haven't already. And I can also follow up about all those places if that's helpful.
That's fantastic, Katie. Yes, thank you for surfacing all three of those. Yeah, if you and I could connect by email, I would love a sort of community ambassador sort of facilitated connection if you're willing to any of those groups. That would be so fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate that. Let me just write your name down. I'm sorry. I see other hands up. Forgive me. Madeline?
Hi. So I had a thought on some other potential partners if you're interested in connecting in the arts repair realm. Radical Repair Workshop is run by a person who is a dear friend of mine and who I also work with professionally through the museum. I'm going to drop her URL in the chat, but she is an educator and reuse artist and does workshops sort of on a similar but more artful direction than the Repair Cafe.
I see.
It's frequently with environmental artist Bryant Holzenbeck, who's a local author and community reuse artist. So I don't know if that's at all in the direction that any of this is going, but they're partners who I've been working with recently, so they're on my mind for these kinds of collaborations.
I appreciate that. Everything's on the table at this point, Madeline. So I so appreciate that. I will follow up. Thank you so much.
The second thing, this is relevant, I think, to this project for you, but also to anybody on this call. The Museum of Life and Science is developing a new exhibit that is a climate and sustainability exhibit. And it is part of the bond that the museum received for major renovations to our buildings. The whole museum is going to get renovated, and the weather gallery is going to turn into a climate gallery. But there's a sort of prototype that is opening hopefully next month, and our exhibits development team is interested in partnering with organizations that are doing work in the field of environmental sustainability and figuring out ways to collaborate and lift up y'all's messages and connect with the community. We have Durham Community Days where it's free for Durham residents to come to the museum. We have a lot of school groups. So our reach is very broad with the audience. And so figuring out ways that we can help amplify the work that y'all are doing. I am not the lead on coordinating that, but I would be happy to connect you to my colleague Bailey Ryan, who is leading the coordination on that.
I certainly, Madeline, would be very interested in continuing that conversation with yourself or just with Bailey. There's also a communication and kind of public education engagement component to this hub for certain, and a partner obviously like the Museum of Life and Sciences would be just fantastic. So I certainly would love to have that conversation with y'all.
Excellent.
Thank you. Forgive me, Marcia, you've had your hand up for a little while now.
No problem. I apologize if I missed this, but is the Fuse support, is that time limited?
Yes, it is a one-year fellowship. And so the fellowship itself will conclude in April of this year, of 24. But the city, the great thing about this Reuse Hub project is that the city's new strategic plan includes specific language around exploring strategies for a circular economy. And this particular project obviously works toward that goal. And so there is broad support from city leadership for this project. And so we're having conversations now about ways to continue the project beyond the Fuse year.
Terrific. Okay, any other questions? Okay.
I think somebody had asked earlier, I don't know if you answered it, Katie, how long the survey is available.
You know, that's a great question, Dawn. Thanks for bringing that up. So the survey has been open since November. Well, I suppose actually since October. And for the most part, you know, the sort of, you know, I was attending the farmers market and I was running all over the city trying to gather as many responses as possible. So the sort of broad community engagement, sort of community outreach focus concluded at the end of calendar year 23. But the survey itself is remaining open at least through February because I'm so committed to targeted outreach. And so obviously anybody on this call, your feedback is most welcome. In addition to comments you've provided here, your response to the survey would be most welcome. But again, your ability to share the survey out through your own networks and help me reach our you know, vulnerable Black, Brown, low wealth communities would go a long way. So I'll be keeping the survey open at least for the next 3 weeks to continue that targeted outreach.
Okay, well, interestingly enough, our presentation in February, which is, let me get this right date. So February 12th, our next meeting, we're going to hear from Kristen with Circular Triangle. And I believe she's going to focus on textile waste reduction. So
That is fantastic.
Yeah.